Hey everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Mindy Banks. I'm the Flip Flop Chef, and today I'm going to show you how to make one of my mom's recipes. It's moist pie crust, and this is a recipe that you can make in bulk. I'm going to show you how to make half of a recipe using the deluxe stand mixer, only because it won't accommodate the full recipe. You also may not want to make the full recipe because it makes a lot. So if this is the first time that you're joining me, I hope you click the subscribe button while you're here so that you'll be notified anytime I post new content. And also be sure to go to theflipflopchef.com and click the button at the top of the page. It'll redirect you to my recipe community where you have access to thousands of recipes, including this one, and I have giveaways every single week. So let's go ahead and get started. If you have bought store-bought pie crust anytime recently, then you know prices on groceries are just higher all across the board right now, but convenience foods seem to be even higher. So if you have ever purchased the boxes of Pillsbury pie crust, you get 2 pie crusts and they come rolled up kind of like this in a box, and they're refrigerated. You can also freeze them if you like. Those right now today, at the time of recording this video, I priced Walmart, and they're $4.29 for a box of 2 crusts. And that comes out to $2, I have to use my notes here, $2.12 per crust if you're buying them pre-made at Walmart. Now, the recipe that I'm going to show you guys how to use today, the total cost for the ingredients comes out to only 79 cents per crust. So when you take the whole, all the ingredients, you add them together and you make the full recipe, that's 79 cents a crust. You can't beat that, and that's a lot cheaper than buying these pre-made. And you're going to be able to freeze these so they'll be ready anytime that you need them. When my mom makes her pie crust, she mixes it by hand and she stores them, she rolls them in balls and she stores them in like plastic baggies and seals them with twist ties. You could do that, but I wanted to show you a different way today, since this is how you can buy them in the store, and these will defrost faster than a ball of dough because they're already rolled out nice and thin. And I did roll mine out. They're a little bit thicker than what you get at the store, so that when I thaw these out and I'm ready to go, I can roll them out to the size that I want. So these, I'm gonna put these back in the refrigerator because I don't want them to come to room temperature, and these are gonna go in the freezer later on. So let me pop these in the fridge. So half of a recipe, so half of my mom's recipe is gonna make 8 crusts. If you make both batches, you're gonna get 16 crusts. So we're gonna use the deluxe stand mixer today. And we only need a few ingredients. So it's gonna come together really quick, and it's super simple to make, and I'm gonna give you some tips along the way. I did a trial run before the recording just to make sure I had everything the way that I thought that you would want it to be presented to you to make it really easy. Now I'm gonna be using the paddle on the deluxe stand mixer today, and actually let me turn this off. I try to not put the beaters on and off when it's turned on. We're gonna start off with the bowl. Now this recipe calls for 5 pounds of flour and 3 pounds of Crisco shortening. So this mixer is not going to be able to accommodate 5 pounds of flour and 3 pounds of shortening. It's just not going to hold enough. So what I did for the first batch is I used Pampered Chef's digital kitchen scale, which is this right here, and I'll show you exactly what I did. So I took the scale, I placed it on the counter, place the bowl on the counter. You're not going to be able to see the lights because we can't both look at them at the same time here. Right now, this is zeroed out on ounces. I want to press the unit button to change this to pounds because a half of recipe, I need 2.5 pounds of flour. So I want to show you guys how to do this in case you're starting with a full bag of flour and a full container of Crisco. You're going to zero it out after you add the bowl on there. So now the weight is 0, so it does not show you the weight of the bowl, okay? It does that first, but not after you press that tare button to reset it to 0. And then I took my bag of flour and I poured out until it got to 2.5 pounds. Actually, I did one other thing. The flour and the salt need to be mixed together. So I poured the salt in the bowl first. And then that weighs like nothing, but I still am gonna tare it and reset that to 0 out. And then it should be the whole rest of this bag, right? So 2.5 pounds of flour. So my first measurement was 2.50 exactly, and this one says 2.54. So it's just slightly over 5 pounds of flour, and that's totally fine. You wanna make sure that you have 2.5 pounds of flour. We're gonna just mix this up here And I'm just using a scraper. You can use a whisk, you can use whatever you like. And then we're gonna add the shortening. Now for this one, it's really easy because I've already weighed out half of the shortening for my first recipe. So what I did for that, I took the container of shortening, I took my scale. So this is what you're gonna do if you're not using just the remainder that you have. I'm gonna take another bowl, okay? You don't want the weight of the bowl, so I'm gonna press tare, and I'm gonna tare again because it said 0.01, I want it at 0. What I did for the first batch, I took my extra large cookie scoop and I scooped out the Crisco and placed it in the small batter bowl until I hit the 1.5 pounds, because this is a 3-pound container of Crisco. So I was actually shocked at how much Crisco costs these days. This was $8.08, so that's the majority of the cost of this is the vegetable shortening. I didn't include the salt and didn't include the water in the cost, only because you probably have salt already at your house and you get the water from your tap, right? So the flour, which my grandmother always used white lily flour, so I am using white lily today. That flour was $4.44 for 5 pounds of flour, and the Crisco was $8.18. Hopefully we'll see some of those prices go down, because I remember when we could buy this for probably like $4 or $5. Now, I already know I've used half of this, so I'm not gonna measure it again. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just scrape all of this out, and whoops, I may have got too much in there. There we go. There we go. I didn't want to plop it out for some reason. So we're going to just pop these out. I had no issues with this before I started recording when I did the other one. So let's use a different, I'll save that for when I'm portioning out the pie crust. Because we are going to weigh the dough. This tool actually works way better when I'm just trying to scrape the side. This is our scoop and spread. We did discontinue this, so if you don't have this, just find a scraper that's really sturdy and scoop all this out. And hopefully I won't have any issues with my large scoop. It was working perfectly earlier, but we'll check it out. All right, so I'm just gonna scrape the sides of this, get the majority of that out, and I'm gonna put this in the bowl and get my hands clean. That's the thing when you're working with shortening. You get a little bit on your hands and it is super greasy, so I'm sure I'll be washing my hands a good bit here. All right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna attach this scraper paddle or beater on here, and then we're going to turn the mixer on, and I'm going to stick my pouring shield in here as I close this, because I don't want it to make a big mess. And you want to start on 1, and you're going to stay on speed 1 almost the entire time, okay? So we're going to just start this. You want it to just slowly mix that flour and that Crisco together. Now, if at any time you feel like it's about to come over the top, you can take a scraper and kind of push it all down. But I think starting on 1 worked really well for me when I made the first batch. Now I have to tell you, my mom made this keepsake recipe book for me. I believe it was 1999 when she made this for me, and it is super special. I absolutely love it, and if you were here in person, you could see that all the pages are falling out because I've used it so much. And so this is her moist pie crust recipe, and because I didn't tell you what the full recipe is, it's 5 pounds of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of salt. So I only did 1 tablespoon of salt, and I did half of the flour, and then 1 can of the Crisco shortening. So I did half of the can. And then you're gonna need a total for the whole recipe 3 cups of water. So I'm gonna just do 1.5 cups. And it needs to be cold water. So let's measure that out in our easy read measuring cup. All right, so it's already coming together. I don't even have to go up to the speed 2. Now, I've watched my mom make this many times, and she uses her hands, and she works really, really hard when she's making this. And I thought this was gonna be too wet. But when I actually finished adding all the water and I rolled everything out, it turned out perfect. So I was really pleased with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and start this back. I've got my, I jerked a little bit. I've got my 1.5 cups of water. I'm just gonna slowly pour this in because I don't want it sloshing around, and I want it to incorporate nicely. So I'm just gonna do like a slow drizzle. And I am going to be able to use my bowl scraper to kind of pull all this together. So her instructions, if you're doing this by hand, so I'm going to tell you how she does it. You're going to mix the flour and the salt in a large bowl, which is what we did. And then you're going to cut in the shortening. You can use your hands, you can use a pastry blender, but you kind of want it to be crumbly like peas. We didn't really get that consistency, and that's what I was a little bit concerned about because the mixer just is so much stronger than our hands, right? Now what I'm going to do, this is what I was talking about. If you find that it's kind of coming up, just push it down a little bit. I should have been adding the water while I was talking to you. So I push this down, and then I'm going to add some more water. See if I can do this without taking all of that off. I'm really glad that I didn't try to do the whole recipe, the whole batch, because it would not have fit. So I'm glad I did a half of the batch. So we're going to add this water. There we go. Let's see. Almost all of that in there. Just keep slowly pouring. There we go. Oops, a little fast. We're going to get all of this water in there, and then I'm going to show you how to weigh it out for the crust and how to roll it out and roll it up to freeze or refrigerate, okay? So that's when it's going to get messy. I don't usually wear an apron anymore, but I put an apron on today because there was flour all over me when I tried to do this the first round. So, all right, I think that is good. So I'm going to just pop this up, and remember, this is super full. I'm going to take this pouring shield off, and then I'm just going to scrape off this pie crust. And like I said, I thought that this was going to be not the right consistency because I'm used to how my mom has done this by hand, and it just is a little bit less smooth when you do it by hand. But once I weighed it out and I started pulling this all together, I was like, oh yeah, this is perfect. So you guys will see, even though it looks wet, it is going to turn out perfectly. All right, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna just set this aside to give me a little bit more space here. Let's see, I'm not gonna need that anymore, so let me unplug that, get that out of the way. Okay, now, set this aside. I should have all the things that I need here. I'm gonna close up her cookbook, but I think I almost finished telling you. You're gonna add the cold water. She says mix lightly with your hands, form into 15 to 20 balls of dough, and place each ball in a baggie with a twist tie and freeze until needed. And then you do thaw it out before you use it. Now, her recipe for 15 to 20 balls of dough is 5 pounds of flour, 3 pounds of Crisco, and I'm just doing a half of a batch. So mine, the way I rolled them out, I got 16. I should have 16 balls of dough or circles of dough. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. So when I first started doing this, I rolled it out on our pastry mat, and then I decided I was just gonna roll it out directly on a parchment paper, a piece of parchment paper, and roll it up right on there. The good news is I can see through this parchment paper. I don't know if you guys can see that on the camera, but there are circles on here, and I chose to go with the 10-inch circle, and it's a little thicker than most pie crust, so if you want it to be more thin like what you find at the grocery store, then you can use a little bit less than I use. But let me show you, and I'm not going to do all these on camera. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then I'll finish the rest of them off camera. But I liked to start with a piece of plastic wrap, and I put this on my digital scale just so that I could put the dough right on the plastic wrap, okay? And what I did, we're gonna see how my scoop works. Whoops, I gotta turn this on. And I want this in ounces, and it's at 0. And I'm just gonna scoop the dough out, and I'm gonna do this until I have 10 ounces of dough. So if you were to go to like a cookie shop or somewhere, they mostly weigh out all of their cookie dough so that everything is the same size. So we're a little bit more, so I'm just doing a little bit at a time, a little bit more. Almost there. So I'm gonna do 10 ounces of dough, and then I'm going to pull it all together. That was a little bit too much. I'm gonna take just a little hair off. Let's see, I'm gonna use that plastic wrap. Okay, 10.05. I'm sorry, I've got this one hair that's sticking to my lipstick, I guess. All right, so now I'm gonna take this dough, and when I do this, I'm gonna just keep the plastic wrap right on top here. I'm gonna flour my hands and put a little bit on the parchment paper. You don't really need a whole bunch there, but you want to have enough to where this is not going to stick to your hands. So I have just been kind of taking from the bowl and just making a ball. So if you want to do it like my mom makes it, this is when you would wrap this in a baggie and freeze it. Now I know that these balls are a little bit bigger than the dough balls that my mom makes, and that's okay. Like I said, mine are thicker and you can make them smaller. So if you wanted to do 8 ounces, I rolled that out too in a 10-inch circle, and I think that would be fine, but I wanted them to be just a little bit thicker. So then I'm gonna press it on here, and I'm gonna take my tapered rolling pin. And you guys know I'm a consultant with the Pampered Chef, and so any of these products that you need, I would love the opportunity to be your consultant. So I hope you'll choose to shop with me. And if you have any questions, I'm always available to answer those. So just use the chat, and I am gonna add a little bit more flour on here. And I'm gonna roll this out as best I can. Remember, we're not cooking this right now, so you can always make it a little bit thinner if you want. And you can continue to roll it out into that 12-inch size if you're making a larger pie crust. I'm gonna use my hands to shape this a little bit. I got a little bit of a weird circle there. And I wanted to make sure I didn't roll it out bigger than the parchment paper that I had. So now I'm just gonna sort of take the edge of my hand, and I'm going to make this into the best circle I can do, and see how it's a little bit thicker on this side. I'm just gonna press it out. Nothing has to be perfect here, at least not in my kitchen, right? Okay, so then what we're gonna do is I sprinkled just a tiny bit more flour on the top. I'm gonna take this parchment paper and I kind of fold it almost on that edge there, and then just start rolling, just like this. And transfer this to the sheet pan, and then continue to do this. So when I made the first batch, I put the sheet pan in the fridge, and after every one, I just put the other one in there because I didn't want this to come to room temperature and soften too much because I've been messing with it. I wanted to keep it refrigerated. And then I'm gonna transfer these into the freezer, and I've got to see if I have a bag big enough. I know Ziploc used to make a 2-gallon bag, and I couldn't find those. So I may be wrapping these parchments in plastic wrap, and that's okay too. So you just wanna make sure that they're sealed up when you put them in the freezer. If you have a vacuum sealer, you could certainly use that and seal each one, so you can get really creative with that. But what I will be continuing to do is I'm gonna continue to measure out about 10 ounces, 8 to 10, depending on how thick you want these to be, ounces of dough, roll it out on a piece of parchment paper. And as I get down to the bottom of the bowl, I'm gonna just use my bowl scraper to kind of pull all of the dough together. And that way I'm not wasting anything, I'm not leaving anything stuck to the sides of the bowl. So I will post this recipe, my mom's moist pie crust recipe, in my recipe community. So if you're not a member yet, you need to go to theflipflopchef.com, tap on the button at the top of the page, and it'll redirect you to my recipe community where you'll find thousands of recipes as well as a giveaway at least once a week. Every single Friday I have a product recipe or a product giveaway in that recipe community, and I have some other things scattered about throughout every single month, but every Friday you can guarantee there's going to be a product giveaway. So if you have any questions, please let me know, and I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel while you're here, and reach out if you have any questions. I have more videos coming, so stay tuned. Bye everyone.